this page. Please take Please take your seat. Shalom and welcome. My name is Rabbi Avi Peretz from Temple Emmanuel in Myrtle Beach. And we gather here today to bring Herbert, Hecht, Chaim Zelig ben Yosef Miriam to his eternal rest and pay our last respect to a dear man. This is a very difficult time for the family. We start first with a few prayers. Will be in Hebrew and English and a little bit of Aramaic. And then we'll have a chance for all of you to talk about your dear Herb. A voice says, "Cry out," and I say, "What shall I cry?" All flesh is grass, and all its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades, when the wind of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people are grass, the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God shall endure forever. That was Isaiah 40. כל אומר קרא ואומר מה אקרא, כל הבשר חציר וכל חסדו כציץ השדה. יבש חציר נבל ציץ, כי רוח אדוני נשבה בו. כרחם אב על בנים, Psalm 103. Tender as a father with his children. The Lord is merciful with his worshippers. He knows how we are fashioned. He remembers that we are but dust. The days of man are as grass. He flourishes as a flower in the field. The wind passes over it and it's gone, and no one can recognize where it grew. But the Lord's compassion for his worshippers, his righteousness to children's children, remain age after age unchanging. כלה שהריעו לבבי, צור לבבי וחלקי אלוהים לעולם. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart. He is my portion forever. The prophet Isaiah comforts us by telling us that no matter what direction, no matter where we are, what stage we are, God is always with us. אל תירא כי עמך אני, אל תשתא כי אני אלוהיך. אימצתיך אף עזרתיך, תמכתיך בימין צדקי. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will sustain you through my power. Psalm 23. מזמור לדוד. אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בנאות דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי ישובב ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. דישנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He has me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He guides me on the path of righteousness. He revived my soul for the sake of his glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set a table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. The following reading of the prophet Malachi really is an appropriate reading for Herb. תורת אמת הייתה בפיהו ועוולה לא נמצאה בשפתיו, בשלום במישור הלך איתי ורבים השיב מעוון. True instruction was in his lips, and he did not give voice to unrighteousness. He walked with the Lord in peace uprightly, and he turned many away from iniquity. Herb's life is not to mourn, but to celebrate. It was a celebration of life, for when one leaves a legacy of loving family who are all gentle and caring because of the example set by him, that is the cause to say, Baruch Dayan Emet. Thank you, righteous judge. Herb receives many blessings from God. A wonderful wife, lovely children, loving grandchildren, loyal friends, a caring community, and an honorable livelihood. Coming together today among family and friends will give some comfort and solace to his family and many friends. Herb was born in Bronx, New York, to the late Joseph and Miriam Rosen Hecht, 79 years ago. He proudly served our country in the United States National Guard. Following his honorable discharge, Herb went on to own and operate Bryant Laboratories and also went to retire as the laboratory supervisor of Centralized Lab Services in New York. In his free time, Herb was an avid Yankee fan and enjoyed time spent with his family. His family told me that he was such a dedicated man with high moral integrity and wonderful work ethics. He would wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning and visit his patients and do house call. That was the time when we used to do house calls. He loved his family above all else and bragged about his kids and grandkids to anyone he met. He was close with his sisters, Mindy and Carol, and reconnected with his brother Paul over the last few years. Randy told me that since his passing, they have heard so many people who said what a role model he was to them when they were growing up, and now as adults look to him as a good father and as a good man. His beloved wife Shelley, to whom he was happily married for 56 years, his daughter Randy and his son Evan, all testified that he always considered them first. Both Randy and Evan said that the father was an amazing father and an amazing grandfather. Randy told me that Herb was a wonderful husband who provided, and Rachel told me that he was a wonderful husband who provided for all her needs, and he was a great caretaker. She was his high school sweetheart, and she was 16 when she met him. They had lifelong friends who they traveled with to many places in their early life and later on to Europe, the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, and many cruises and many other places. Herb was a happy man, he had a good life and was satisfied with his achievement. He knew how to enjoy the simple pleasures that this world can offer us. A good book, a visit to the grandchildren, or a stimulating conversation with friend would make him very happy. In that sense, he followed the teaching of Rabbi Ben Zakkai, who said, "Who is the wealthy?" And the answer to that question was, "He who rejoices in his portion." As it says in the Psalm 128, "When you eat the labor of your hands, happy shall you be, and it shall be well with you in this world and in the world to come." He was a true gentleman, not only with his manners and elegance, but also in the Jewish sense of the word. He was a mensch, a man of his word, who never spoke badly about other people. He always looked at the positive side of people. For many years, Herb and Shelley owned and managed their laboratory, and they had many loyal customers because they knew that they were going to get the best possible service. Our Jewish tradition in Mishnah Pirkei Avot teaches us the value of a good name. And he definitely had a wonderful good name, good reputation. The Mishnah says, there are 3 crowns: the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of kingship. But the crown of a good name excels them all. When we view the life achievements and deeds of Herb, the decision is clear. We can bestow the crown of a good name without any hesitation. He was a man who fulfilled many commandments and mitzvot and good deeds, which accompany him now to his final journey. He was a true friend, and many of his friends are here, and I know some of them are in Rochester, New York, will miss him greatly. He was a happy man and lived a happy life because he knew how to appreciate life. Shelley, Randy, Evan, family members, sister, grandchildren, and friends. The legacy of Herb will stay with us for a long time, remembering and reflecting on the life of your husband and father and grandfather can comfort you. Seek after his attributes, and that will comfort and guide you for the rest of your days. His life should inspire you to live as he taught you, as he himself strived to live, and as he would want you to live. Recall with gratitude all that he has done for you. May the Almighty comfort the mourners together with all the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. Praise be the name of the Lord. Amen. I'd like to call Evan now.
I think it is safe to say that we are all still in shock. None of us ever expected to be here today to celebrate the life of the strongest, most influential, and important person in our family and group of friends. We are all devastated and grieving, but I can assure you my dad is happy. He is happy because we are all here. Having his family and friends around him made him complete. He is happy because he is no longer struggling to walk, no longer going in and out of hospitals and rehab, no longer dealing with home visits of healthcare providers. And most importantly, he's happy because he's currently on a street between 2 auto parts stores and halfway to the car wash. As I have spent time these last few days with everyone, talking and reminiscing about so many memories and happy times, one thing is always constant. He loved his family and friends more than anything. He was the best dad Randy and I could ever ask for. He loved Mom more than anything. He viewed Amy and Glenn as his children, but nothing, and I mean nothing, brightened his world like his grandchildren. I will always remember the smile on his face when he saw Spencer and Jenna for the first time, and it was the same with Cameron and Bailey. Nothing made him happier than spending time with them, talking to them on the phone, and hearing about everything they have accomplished. He was so proud of them and bragged about them to anyone he encountered. He lived a life of helping people, which is quite possibly the best mitzvah a person can perform. He would get up at 4 a.m. just to make house calls, people who were too sick to come into his lab and get their blood taken. And he did it with a smile on his face because he enjoyed helping others. I still remember going with him to do this on Saturday mornings, and I was in awe of how happy he made others feel during their times of sickness. I don't ever recall a time when he said no to anyone in our family or his friends when they asked for help with something. It didn't matter what time of day it was, he just did it. He always put his family and others first because anything in his life, because that was what made him happy. Mom, what can I say? These last few years you have been truly amazing, giving up your entire life to take care of him. You managed everything, cared for him 24/7, and made sure he was healthy and safe. Although we can say he may not have been the most cooperative at times, he knew everything you were doing and loved you so much. He knew he was lucky to have the most amazing wife and person by his side. Everyone who knew Dad also knew his other side. How funny, goofy, and told the same but great jokes all the time. He loved talking about every car that would drive by and what Consumer Reports had to say about it. He loved going to the car wash and also bragging about all the great deals he would get with gas for his car. He loved time spending with his best friend Danny. While they sat there and told jokes, ate Dutch pretzels, and made some, shall we say, some non-appropriate or politically correct jokes about and comments. His mechanical and repair skills might not have been the best, but he taught me a lot. For example, if you're using an electric saw, it doesn't work very well when you saw right through the electrical cord. If you happen to have a jar of fox urine from the exterminator who says use as little as possible in a rag to keep raccoons away, it's best not to drop the entire bottle on the floor when Mom is about to serve dinner. Or, when you're cementing the soap holder back into the shower, you should probably make sure it's not upside down before you permanently attach it to the wall. He also taught me it's fun to play sports with your children. But if you want to show your son how you can make a basket from the edge of the driveway, don't throw the basketball through the glass in the garage door instead. I can't tell you how many times Amy and the kids look at me when I do the same type of things and they say, "Dad, you were being so Grandpa Herbie." To be honest, that's the best possible compliment I think I could ever receive. About a year ago, when a friend of mine passed away, during the funeral, the cantor talked about a group of 36 people called the Lamed Vavnik, or righteous people. They are placed on this earth with the sole purpose to help others and promote mitzvot and kindness. These are not just good people, they are exemplary, come from regular, normal, humble places in society, and are chosen by God for this mission. Most importantly, their identity is hidden. As they pass, they are replaced on by another, so we always have 36 righteous people keeping us together and spreading mitzvot. Within an hour of Dad passing away, we heard a lullaby come over the loudspeaker at the hospital, indicating a baby had been born. At that point, it hit me. Dad had exhibited all of these qualities, and he had been one of the 36. He was now being replaced by God as he goes into eternal rest after his chosen life. One more thing. I know we are all sad and grieving, but that is absolutely the last thing he would ever want any of us to do for him. So when you're having a moment of sadness that you just can't get out of, please think about all the happy and funny times you had with him, because that is exactly what he would want all of us to do. Dad, I am so proud and lucky to have had you as my father. I promise I'll do everything I can to carry on your legacy, and I love you.
I should have compared notes with Evan since I think we have a lot of the same jokes in here. Okay. So, I just wanted to write a few words about my dad, and I'm hoping I can get through it all. I know a lot of you knew him down here for the last 15 years, but I thought I'd also share a little of his life in the years before as well. My mom and him were married 1 month shy of 56 years. They met in Taft High School in the Bronx when my mom's best friend Elise set them up on a blind date. It was a bowling date, I'm pretty sure, on April Fool's Day, and my mom still likes to say he was the biggest joke of her life. While no one would say their marriage wasn't without fights and issues, they definitely stood by each other through the good times and the bad. He was always showering my mom with gifts, whether it was bringing home flowers at the end of the work week or buying her presents, if she wanted them or not. I can remember some arguments about a too expensive mink coat and a Gucci watch, to name a few. He also spoiled Evan and me, often to my mom's chagrin. Why do they need this toy? You just bought them this last week. One time he even decided we should have a dog. Now, if you know my mom, you know this might have been the worst idea ever. My dad came home with the cutest little dog, Victor, which Glenn loves the name Victor. I think it was one of his patients or something. Evan and I were so excited and played with him the whole day. We woke up the next morning looking all around. Where's Victor? We asked. He was really homesick, my mom said. So Dad drove him back in the middle of the night. It wasn't until years later that we learned as soon as we went to sleep, my mom was like, there is no way this dog is staying in this house. That was my dad. He didn't always think things through. He just wanted to make us happy. His whole life, he worked to help others and to provide for us. He used to get up at the crack of dawn to get to work so he could be home at the end of the day to eat dinner as a family. Though I'm sure part of the reason was to beat the traffic. When we ate dinner, the phone was always off the hook and the TV never allowed to be on, unless we were eating before it was Final Jeopardy. Then it could stay on. I can still picture his lab on Pelham Parkway, going in with him on the weekends, sometimes because he needed to take the blood of someone who couldn't get there during the week, or taking us to a nursing home on the way to something else because he had to help a patient. Later on, when he had a lab in Borough Park, Brooklyn, he'd drive almost 2 hours each way, 6 days a week. No one could say he didn't complain about it, and he still did it for too many years to make sure my mom, Evan, and I had what we needed and wanted. We always said he'd make a great taxi driver. He loved to talk to people and knew every road in New York. I definitely didn't inherit his sense of direction. Before the days of GPS, I'd always ask him how to get somewhere. He could tell me 3 different routes, exactly how many miles until I needed to turn on to the next street, and all the landmarks along the way. And he was always right. How did he know there was a CVS on that exact corner, or 1.3 miles after you passed the Dunkin' Donuts, the turn would be up ahead on the right? If you knew my dad, you knew his sense of humor above all else. He might be the original inventor of the dad joke, and Bailey will always say there is no one sillier than Grandpa Herbie. When I was away at camp all summer, he wouldn't write me just normal letters. How are you? I miss you. How's the food? Instead, I would get a story in each letter that would continue all summer. One year it was about a family of Cabbage Patch Kids and their adventures. Another year it was something about the Smurfs. My friends in my bunk used to love when I'd get a new one and I'd read it out loud. But one thing he wasn't was handy. There was the time he sawed straight through the cord of the electric saw and was confused why it stopped working. And the time he was so proud of the super strong glue job he did on the soap caddy in our shower. The thing was never coming off. One of us had to tell him. He glued it upside down. He was also a bit overprotective and a worrier. The first time Evan and I were going for a sleepover at our cousin Francine's, along with our overnight bags, he dropped off a bag of smoke detectors because he didn't want us staying in a place without them. I also can't talk about my dad and not mention his friend Danny, who passed away 7 years ago. My dad never got over it. Ellen and Danny were my parents' best friends. They were really family. Every Friday night for I don't know how many years, they went out for dinner, using the entertainment book, of course, and then came back to our house. Ellen and my mom would sit in the kitchen or upstairs, and my dad and Danny would plant themselves on the couch in the family room. I can still picture them sitting in front of the TV watching sports, a baseball game, a basketball game, boxing, always with a container of Charles Chips pretzels, and always yelling at the TV and cracking jokes with each other. Danny usually with the funnier ones. And if I don't picture him in front of the TV watching the news, sports, or really bad TV shows about cars or cops or what have you, I picture him at the kitchen table on Summit Street, the newspaper open, often reading it out loud to us, with 10-10 wins on the radio behind him and a box of Entenmann's donuts right next to him. My dad had a lifelong love of baseball, especially the New York Yankees. He was born in the Bronx right near Yankee Stadium. He used to tell stories about how he and his friends would hang by the stadium and wait for the players to come out and get autographs, all the greats, what Cameron wouldn't do to have some of those for his collection right now. He was a pitcher in high school and was even scouted by the minor leagues. The story always was that he wanted to marry my mom instead, so he turned them down. He later played softball as a catcher in a bunch of over 40 leagues. We can just gloss over my brother's baseball career, though my dad was still happy to coach his team. From Spencer's first Little League team to Cameron's last, He made sure to buy the shirt and hat of whatever team they were on. Someone would say, I didn't know you were a Phillies fan, and he'd say, I am when my grandson is on the team. He got to watch Spencer play on his teams in Buffalo. He took Cameron to one of his first T-ball games in a park in Brooklyn when Glenn and I were out of town. It was freezing cold and may have even been raining, but he knew Cameron couldn't miss it. When he moved down here and got a job working for the Pelicans, it was like a dream come true. Get paid to watch baseball. He loved when we'd all come down in the summer so he could get us tickets to the game. He was so excited to show us off to all the ushers and people he worked with, making sure to get our names on the big board, and even had Spencer and Jenna out on the field doing things in between innings. During Cameron's last 2 seasons of Little League, after a big win, the first thing Cameron would say when he'd get in the car was, "Can I call Grandpa?" He wanted to tell him how he played, what positions, and what hits he got. Most recently, my dad was able to watch his games all live streamed. He sat at the table with my mom's iPad, cheering and yelling like the kids were right there in front of him. He loved his grandkids above all else, and I'm sure many of you have heard countless stories about them. We may have lived in 3 different places, but he and my mom made sure to make it to the big things. Jenna's plays and dance recitals, Spencer's baseball and soccer games, Cameron's hockey and baseball games. Bailey loved to cozy up with him on the couch with her bunny and make him read her a book or watch cartoons in bed with him. It's still all so surreal and it doesn't seem permanent, but I know that he had a life well lived, surrounded by so many friends and family. When he passed peacefully, surrounded by the wife he adored and his 2 children who he doted on, he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I love you, Dad. I love you so much.
As you all know, he was such an amazing person, but he was an incredible grandfather. So a couple of the grandkids would like to say our favorite memories and some of our favorite things about Grandpa. My favorite memory was the napkin magic trick. It never failed to make us laugh. I loved how compassionate he was. Cameron's favorite memory was when Grandpa poured the entire bottle of syrup on his pancake. It was really funny. His favorite thing about Grandpa was how funny he was. Spencer's favorite memories about Grandpa are when he would come to his baseball games and wear the team's hat because he always bought a new one every year. He always knew how to put a smile on the face of everyone he was talking to.
Goodbye, old friend. You cannot know how much I will miss you, how much I cared about you, and how much I respected you. Although we knew each other for over 40 years, I got to know you really well these last 14 years, living so close. You have been there for me. You supported me through my down times. When I lost my son, when I had surgeries, even when I was just feeling blue, you were there for me. You knew how to cheer me up with a corny joke. You knew how to give me a compliment when I needed one. Whenever I hear the word phenomenal, I will think of you. It was your favorite compliment. When I brought you some homemade food, you'd always say, "It was phenomenal." When I had good news to share, you said, "That's phenomenal." I never got to tell you that the smartest thing you ever did was marry Shelley. But I think you knew that. That long ago teenage blind date led to a 56-year marriage, which is pretty phenomenal. It's often said that you can judge a person by how they raise their children, and by any standard, Herb was a roaring success at that. He raised 2 terrific children, and you just heard them speak, and so you know I mean it when I say that. And they are raising 4 wonderful grandchildren. You cannot find a closer, more loving family anywhere. They were truly his pride and joy. He was so proud of Evan and Randy's accomplishments. Whenever he spoke about his grandchildren, his face would light up and he would beam with happiness. Herb was the most friendly and likable person you could ever meet. He always had something positive to say and was always ready to give a helping hand. So many people have said to me in the last 2 days how kind and generous he was and how much he will be missed. Herb, you will not be forgotten, not just by your family, but by all who knew you. Your friendship has been an important and uplifting part of my life. You were a special person, and knowing you was truly phenomenal.
Thank you for sharing this information. I think I know him even much more now after all that. At this point, I'll ask you to rise for a memorial prayer called El Maleh Rachamim. El Maleh Rachamim, שוכן במרומים. אמצעי מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת חיים זליג בן יוסף ומרים, שהלך לעולמו. בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו, אנא בעל הרחמים, אז תראהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים, את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Herbert, Hecht, Chaim, Zelig, Ben Yosef, and Miriam, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is his portion. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. And now for the Kaddish, the mourner's Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך ירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו, יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו, עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו, אמן. המקום ינחם אתכם בקרב שאר אבלי ציון וירושלים. May God comfort you with all other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem.
This concludes our services at this time. The immediate family will be returning home, and they would like for you to come by the house on Monday and Tuesday from 1 to 4. They would like to invite friends to the house from 1 to 4 on Tuesday. And that's at the address of 3032 Shorecrest Bay Drive. Thank you.